Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens.
We cherish that. We love that particular piece of it because
Teach people like, hey, it's okay. Change.
New ways to view age-old challenges. Change your thoughts, change your life. Step into the bigness of you.
Greetings, and welcome to today's episode of Speak, the Universe Listens. And today's topic is how to find your answers to any question. And I have Stephen and Teron.
Hey.
Hey, how y'all doing?
good.
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good as well. So, how to get your questions answered? So, a lot of times, or most of the times, we think that if we have questions, that the best thing to do is to hit Google, or to ask our parents, or discuss it with our best friends, and those types of things. And of course, all those things work. But are you guys aware of any other ways to get your questions answered?
Yeah, I think you might have suggested one to me before, which is to meditate and to find a way to get within my thoughts, I guess is a more generic way of saying it. So I usually if I'm pondering something really heavy, I try to go out into outdoors and nature and just sit with myself. Excuse me. Because I don't know, it's almost like the nature grounds me and also raises my vibration while I'm also focusing on whatever I'm focusing on and keeping it in a positive light.
Yeah, I would say if anything, nature is my thing. Nature sort of I could just walk in the park and just my mind is just at ease a little bit. So I would say for anybody, just finding something that is more, that brings you comfort, brings you some peace, and that's just your time to yourself. And then that way, when you have that little time to yourself, you start to think about things things come to you
Yeah, so when these things come to you, how do you know what the right answer is?
Well, I honestly, whatever resonates with me, what I feel resonates with me, that feels right for me, then that's the answer that I'm gonna go with. Because sometimes, we may think that we know the answer, but then sometimes we second guess ourselves all the time. And then normally when we do that, we go with the wrong choice. So basically, it's just following your heart and going with the answer that resonates with you. And you'll know when something resonates with you because it's okay, because you just feel it. You feel that it's right, versus if you were to second guess yourself. Because when you second guess yourself, it's you're not too sure. So if you ain't too sure, then how do you know? So.
Yeah, and for me, so I usually know that I'm making the right decision. Well, two things. It all depends on what the decision is. Because if it's depending on what the decision is, I'll tell myself, well, there is no wrong decision. Whatever you feel is the right decision. And then, so that's always one way. And then the second way is, when you get quiet enough, I don't know if it's just me, but it's always you hear yourself telling you which one to do.
All the time.
It's I could be sitting there in silence, meditating. I'm man, I just don't know. I don't know if I want to tie my left shoes first or my right shoes first. And I just sit there, and then something just yell out, left. I don't know why I'm going left, but I heard left, so let's follow the intuition and go left.
So you said a couple of things. So one thing I want to say is when you say something yells out to you and then you say you follow intuition. So now are you hearing something or are you feeling something or both?
It's like a both. It's like a,
Okay.
it almost feels like a rush first. I'm trying to put myself in the moment. Like it feels like a quick rush, like, oh, I gotta make this decision. Then it's like something just goes this one. And then I'm like, all right, well, that's the one. Like it gave me a rush and then it was like, I heard it. So it's like I got this feeling of like, all right, yeah, let's go. And then it's like, go.
So I like what you said about if you're still wavering, then that's probably not the right answer, right? Because I know a lot of times when you're just sitting thinking about stuff can just come in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like a good example for me, just recently, you know, in terms of me selling my book, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things so it's like I always get all these ideals, and then I'm never sure if it's me coming up with the idea or is it my higher self coming up with the idea. So sometimes I get confused, right? And so when it's like, oh, I get these things like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good.
Ooh, everything just.
And then of course I'm always like, oh girl, you're so smart. But no, seriously, so I came up with this ideal and I was like, I wanted to actually have somebody sponsor all the schools in Richmond, right? So I'll have a sponsor and each sponsor would purchase books for the students at each school. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And so I started working on it, but somewhere along the way, something was like, I don't know if you came up with that or higher spirit, you know.
Right.
And so I got confused. So I just sat on it. So I'm like, I'm gonna just sit on it and see if I get that inspiration again or whatever. So, but in general, I was trying to figure out, do I actually hear something or do I feel something? And I think it's kind of both. However, I can only hear it when I'm quiet, right? And so a lot of times when I'm quiet, it's still all kinds of chatter going on in my head. And I think for most of us in our society, it's become popular. It's the popular thing to say and to do and to be is to be busy. So everybody's busy. It's like if you're not busy, something wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like we strive to be busy. And then when we're not busy, then we're doing things like, you know, looking at TV, on the telephone, on social media, reading books. Like we're still doing something. And it's almost like we forget how to do nothing. We don't know how to do nothing. And that's like a space that we really need to put practice into.
I agree with you on that because a lot of I would say some of my success just in my life and just thinking about it came from those times as to where I just sat still and absolutely doing nothing, you know. Like just one day out of the blue, I decided to come up with, write a blueprint for my business and I did that, you know. You know, sometimes I have those moments as to where it's like a burst of energy. Something comes to you, right? And you're like, you know what? You're like, yeah. Like, you get all excited, and then after a while, about maybe an hour later, you don't have that same burst of energy as what you did, you know, when it came to that idea. But, like I said before, though, mainly it's just basically finding out what really feels right for you. And like you said, it's a mixture, but for me, I would say it's a feeling. You know, if it feels right, you know, then I'm like, okay, that's what I'm gonna go with.
I like something that Deepak Chopra said in one of his books. He said that, like basically, you know, the chatter in our minds, and he compared it to like a river. And he's like, you could drop the Empire State Building into a turbulent ocean or turbulent river and never know that it was there. Like it wouldn't make a difference. But if it's a calm lake, you can drop one pebble in it and it'll ripple all the way across. And so when you think about that with your mind, if your mind is just like going 100 miles an hour, like you can't hear the faintest things, you know. But once you take the time to be still, then you are open to hearing that flow and hearing divine guidance.
Very true.
Yeah. I was actually just thinking about something that you had said earlier too. You know, a lot of times even when you're still, it's still a bunch of stuff coming in and out of your brain. And so I remember when you first came to me and said, hey, we should try meditating. My first pushback was, well, you know, I tried, but every time I do it, I either just bust out into tears or I'm never getting anything done because my brain just it never stops going. And so I think you had told me to say an affirmation while I was doing it first. And so I started doing that. And then my brain was only focusing on those words. And now it's at the point now where I could literally just sit there and I don't have to say anything. This is like, all right, now I'm getting, if I give myself enough time, it'll all like be calm and still. But usually like now in my meditation, I expect like the first 10 minutes to kind of be like a lot of chatter. But I feel like that's just me trying to figure out exactly what I want to focus on in that moment. Like, all right, well, this is everything that's happening. This is what's on your mind. Now, it's almost like they run across my face as a screen as like words. And like once I find the one I want to focus on, I grab and it's like, all right, well, we're here today.
This is
Like, yeah, we're focusing on being precise today, right here. So that's what that feels like. And also, sorry. At first, like the idea of just sitting somewhere still, I couldn't do it. It was like sitting somewhere still, like 5 minutes was like, all right, that felt like an hour. Our group intention calls. Well, I know now that every Tuesday that there's at least 20 minutes allotted to sitting still and focusing on this one thing, and it helps.
Cool, man. That's so awesome.
I'll say one thing too that helps me out when I'm just like in nature, or I just have just silence to myself, is focusing on my breathing. And I notice like throughout the day, I don't really focus on it, so I'm not breathing properly, and I might be, you know, 1,000,001 things on my mind that's just rushing through my mind. But when I'm just like, say, I take me a break and I just sit in the car and I just think, like, and I just be thinking for a second or two, but then I just notice my breathing, and I just focus on like inhaling and exhaling, but I'm aware of that, you know, that I'm doing it intentionally, and it sort of just brings me at a nice, calm, smooth, like, okay, all right, like another one down, you know. So.
And that's good. I know. I used to try to do that,
Yeah.
and I would go. My goal was to get to 10 breaths. I would go 1, 2, and then my mind is somewhere else. And then I would start over 1, 2, and then I'm somewhere else. And I could never get past 3, like ever to this day. That's not something I could do. But I am good at like focusing on a particular affirmation. I can do that very well. And you know, different strokes for different folks,
Right.
or whatever. But the bottom line is that we really are connected to everything. So just as easily as I can ask you a question, I can just ask a question and get the answer. And this is something I did back in like 2011. I was taking these classes, and I don't know why chemistry, why it kicked my butt. I don't know why, because I'm a science person. I'm a math and science person, but I just couldn't get that chemistry for some reason. And so every time I had an exam, I never understood it, so I never knew, you know. So anyway, I had a little ritual, so I would study, but I never understood what I was studying. And I would pray, and then I would talk to the greats. You know, I talked to George Washington Carver,
All the answers.
Mae Jameson, you know, and I would just ask them, just pour your knowledge into me. And they would listen, because I would get in there, I don't know what I would be writing on that paper. I mean, the whole class would be gone, you know, like I'm fast at everything I do, right? So any test you give me, I'm gonna be the first one to finish, right? Not in chemistry. So I see the first person leave, I'm like, they probably don't know what they're doing. A second person, next thing you know, the whole class is gone.
And you laugh.
I'm still sitting there, and I'm like halfway through, and the teacher looking like,
Anytime, man.
Yeah, you know.
I literally have gotten put out several times taking the chemistry exam. Like, look, sweetie, I gotta go. Or whatever. So I never knew what I was doing. I never knew if my answers were right. Nothing. That's how clueless I was. And then I would get A's, highest grade in the class. I would mess up the curve, and I didn't learn a thing. But those ancestors
It was all
was
pouring
giving
out.
me those answers. You say the ancestors. Yeah, but yes, but seriously, and I've used that since in other things, but that was my first time actively doing it. But yeah, we can go within, and we can just ask the questions, and we can get it from the answers. We can get them from that flow, that infinite, the mind of the infinite. But the thing is, like, a lot of times I'm talking, I feel like I'm talking to my higher self, and in my head, my higher self is like focused directly on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll ask questions of my higher self, like, what am I to do?
Right.
And then I'll get the answer, and it may not come in that particular moment, and it may actually end up coming through someone else. But I know if I put that question out there,
Right.
I'm going to get the answer. And most of the times it will come through me, but it's a voice that I had to learn how to distinguish from my think I know everything. Because I do think I know it. I have a lot of that. So I had to distinguish it from the one that thinks she know everything
Right.
from the my higher self voice. And it's like a process to get to know which voice is which. And I like what you say, like when you know it
Yeah.
versus you think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Yeah, I think that taking from the greats and just asking your higher self, or just asking the universe itself, is a great thing to do. Think about a time where I did it, was actually doing part of this process here. Like when we first started recording, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's
like-
all the will do.
I would get in here though. I sit down in front of the computer. Everybody else is looking around like, okay, he got that part handled. I'm gonna look at that computer, and I just think to myself like, all right, somebody help me through what I need to get to in this very moment, and it always happens every time. I was thinking about just happened a few weeks ago. I did an event, and I had tested everything for this event, but there was one thing I couldn't test, and the only reason I couldn't test it is because if I tested it, then it would start the whole event. So I was like, all right, well, I just gotta assume that I know what I'm doing. I was like, yeah, I think I know what I'm doing though. I got there, was trying to start it. What I thought was it, just didn't do it. I was like, all right. So I'm looking around, I'm like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing now. Let's figure this out. So somebody asked me a question, and I was like, somebody just help me. And I said that to myself, and the next thing I know, I seen the button in the corner, I hit the button in the corner, and everything just started flowing. Just like that. I was like, Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I just asked for help, and it all popped up right there.
And I think that's what we have to realize, that we are connected,
Right.
connected to the source of everything that exists. The universe has our back. God has our back. Everybody has our back. We're never alone. Like, we believe that we're separate and, distant, and no one's paying any attention to us, but the forces of the universe loves us. And is paying attention to us, and if we only take the time to acknowledge. And My mom, she's real big on angels.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was hoping you could hear.
Yeah. And so she believes you can ask your angels for anything. And the thing that I typically ask the angels about is when I lose something. The angel of lost things, because that angel, that angel. Yeah, they'll help. She or he, whichever you want to call it. I guess they don't technically have a gender, but yeah, the angel of lost things. If you lose anything, talk to the angel of lost things. They'll help you out. Have you had an incident?
Yes, yeah, and I didn't want to tell it first because I always think about Coco and you every time I think about it. It was one day I had lost my keys, and for the life of me, I could not find my keys, and I was like, man, I just don't know where they at. Like, I'm talking to the point where I was like, I'm just convinced I'm not going nowhere today, and that's fine. I already talked to them, like, all right, cool, whatever I thought I was going to do today, let's start rescheduling because you ain't got no keys. And I thought about we had just recorded recently, and you had just shared that story. I was like, well, let me try this. So I was like, Angela lost things. Can you just help me find my keys? I even made a promise that I knew I won't keep. I was like, I promise I won't lose them ever again.
But you lost them.
And they knew I was going to lose them again, but they was okay. They was like, yeah, I'm going to help you.
I'm gonna guide you real quick.
And popped right on up. And so that time, and then a time where I wish I would have knew this, it was a time me and Rodney were in Miami. And man, we had just went out, I think, so we came back in, went to sleep. Anyway, like the way the bed was made up, because I'm not taking credit for it. The way the bed was made up, like it was easy to lose stuff in that bed. I got there though, I lost my wallet. Like we searched all around the whole room for the wallet. We done ran to everywhere we done been for this wallet. I'm thinking to myself like, man, like, it's a lot of hecticness coming from this. Like I can't catch a flight back home now, I have no ID. Like, I was thinking about everything that would line up. So that was the one where I wish I would have knew that like that angel could just actually, because I swear I could have found that wallet at least about an hour earlier. Talk about some scariness though.
Yeah. So yeah, but have you ever talked to the angel of lost things?
Yeah, if I ain't say the angels, I done talked to somebody. Somebody came through for me plenty of times. I be sitting back, same thing with me. I lose the keys or I misplace my my keys for work, and I'm sitting back. I'm like, I literally just have that word. Or I might be looking for my drill. I lose that all the time. I don't know why. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, how did I do this? And I'm searching and searching until I give in and I said, look, all right, pause. Help me find my keys. Ancestor, somebody, spirit, help me find what I need. Help me. Then give or take maybe about 5 minutes later, I turn around. Sitting
Right there.
the whole time. I'm
Like somebody just came.
yeah, like, bloop. I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah. But if you haven't talked to the angel of lost things, just give them a call because they will answer.
Yes, they will.
And I'm sure they're angels of all kinds of things. So, feel free, as my mom would say, just whatever you need. She always says you have angels just surrounding you, just waiting. But that they don't intervene unless you invite them in to intervene, which I say, intervene whenever you want.
Please.
Yeah. So anyway, any closing comments?
Yeah, I actually did have a question for y'all. So, do you feel it's possible to be still in movement? Because I think you've spoken before about like sometimes you meditate to running, and so like I guess I was just wondering like how is that still being still in that moment?
So yeah, so technically when I'm saying be still, I'm really talking about quieting the chatter in your brain. And because even when you talk about doing mantras, it's still you're kind of doing something, but it's like you're focusing on one thing versus having all this other stuff, and that allows you to get quiet or whatever, allows your mind to get quiet. Because like I said, we can sit down and be quiet,
Right.
but it's all kinds of stuff. So in a sense that even though you might be sitting like this, but you're thinking a million thoughts, you're really not still. So what I really mean is to quiet your mental chatter And you're exactly right. When I run, that's one of the reasons why I love running, is because I'm totally in a meditative state when I'm running. Yeah.
And for me, it's just nature. You know, even when I'm at work and I'm outside, I'm just, you know, and I don't have no music on, no nothing. I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm just pretty much, my mind is like at ease. I don't have a billion and one things going on in my mind. But that's more when I'm, put it like this, when I'm walking. I'll take that back. When I'm walking, there's nothing really going on in my mind. I'm just flowing.
Right.
That's how I feel. It's like I'm just flowing. And I'm just enjoying nature and just, it's like, I don't know how you describe that feeling. It's just a feeling of joy, abundance, peace. That's the biggest thing, peace. And then, you know, I get in the car, get ready to go. Yeah.
It's funny that you said that. You reminded me, because people always say, like, you should make your career something that you love. And so the things I would love is exercising, walking, and cleaning. And I'm like, so should I be a cleaning lady? Like, I just really couldn't understand. I'm like, you know, and how can my career be me exercising? Like, I didn't enjoy having other people exercise.
Right.
It was me exercising. So I'm like, how can I have a career exercising? Because it's not like I was a top athlete or anything like that. Am I supposed to be a cleaning lady? Like,
Right, like your mind just going left and right.
yeah, but what I finally realized is what I was really loving is the zenning out, the zoning out. Because when I clean, I get in that same mode and everything shuts down. And that, like you described, is that peaceful
Right. It's just
place.
Yeah, it's peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So being still, quieting the chatter, learning how to hear your divine guidance, recognizing that the universe is here to support us. We're never alone. We can ask questions of our angels, of our higher selves, of our ancestors. We are connected to the flow of the mind of the infinite, and we forever have access to that flow. And it is cool when you can get the answer from your friends and it comes through there sometimes, but you can always just turn within, get the perfect answer for you every single time. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you next week. Until then, bye.
See you.